Have you ever seen a UFO? Bigfoot or some ghosts? On Tactiles, there's Susie. She is the host. We really like to hear from you. You can tell us then all about the aliens. And if you're one of them, we really need to know. We really need to know. Really need to know, or we will come and get you in the night.
Hi, welcome to Out of This World with Susan and Willy. I'm Susan Spooler, your host,
And I'm Willy Miranda.
and today we're here talking with Paul Eno. Paul, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Susan and Willie. Nice to be with you.
Thank you.
Same here.
So Paul, Paul's going to be one of our speakers at the 2015 Greater New England UFO Conference. Paul has written many books regarding the UFO phenomena. He's working on 2 upcoming books. It's very exciting. And his son, Ben, often joins him on these endeavors. So Paul, tell us about what your latest experiences are.
Well, we've been investigating a case in central Connecticut, Susan. And as a matter of fact, I gave rather an introduction to it at last year's conference, because what we found, we were primarily ghost researchers, me for the last 45 years and Ben for the last 10. And we found that when we would investigate poltergeists or apparitions, things of this kind, it would never involve one house or one family. It would always involve actually an entire area usually. And if you could get near the neighbors to talk to them about this sort of thing, very often they would tell you that they would have experience as well. But we kept finding that UFOs kept entering the picture somehow. In the case in central Connecticut, for example, it started in '05 with ghosts, quote unquote ghosts, about which we have a very different opinion than the classical interpretation. And by '09, people in the entire area were seeing UFOs, to the point where they were getting out of their cars in Goshen and Torrington, Connecticut, and looking up at the sky at these strange lights. Ben and I were there in '09 and 2010, and we saw lights of this kind. And then the military started to show up. And then there may be a base of some kind at a so-called abandoned farm. We've documented some of that. I did serve in the military and had some intelligence connections, and I called upon one of those connections, and I gave him the location of that farm, and we were told to back off. In other words, there was something going on. So that's the information at this point. A book has just come out written by William J. Hall, who was also a speaker at the conference.
Yes.
And Bill will be talking about that case in more depth. And I said, Bill, I hope you're prepared to write 3 or 4 more books, because this is only just getting started. So it started with ghosts in '05, and by now, and actually 2012, 2013, 2010, we were dealing with UFOs, grays people were seeing, and in the whole area, and so it's morphed into that. And only yesterday, someone sent a picture from that area of something in their kitchen taken by a security camera, and for lack of a better term, it looks just like a reptilian, which is a common theme in some of the more extreme UFO views. I don't know about that myself, but anything is possible out there in what we refer to as the multiverse, and quantum physics has looked into that. So it's quite an interesting, been an interesting month as far as that case is concerned, and we're looking forward to the conference coming up in Leominster.
Terrific. So we were just speaking with Mark D'Antonio a few minutes ago, and he was telling us in Torrington, when he was a child, there's a lake there that he had some missing time when he was a child.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, Mark is involved in the investigation of this case, and we've been after his illness. Now we're trying to get back to our plans to use a drone to investigate some of these areas, and it continues to unfold.
Yes, after the show. He showed me his drone, which was quite impressive. So,
It is.
So Torrington, Connecticut. Tell us where it is for people who are geographically challenged. Where is that in relation to Hartford?
Okay, well, it's in Western Connecticut. Hartford is right more or less in the middle. As a matter of fact, I grew up in East Hartford.
Okay.
And so I'd say Torrington is probably 30 miles to the southwest of this,
Okay.
of the Hartford area in Litchfield County.
Litchfield County. Now, was that near Terryville, or?
Farther west than that, it's about 8 miles north. Because these are all geographical references. It's not all that far from the New York border, and it's perhaps 8 miles north of Danbury.
Okay. All right. So it's
Along Route 84.
along Route 84. Okay. So for
Yeah.
those that understand, so that's pretty. It's interesting how we're all somehow brought together with all of these phenomena and the research and the connections that we have here.
Well, it's true. It's a small community, although it's unusual for someone who's involved in ghost research and poltergeist and possession stuff, such as myself for all these years, to get drawn to the UFO field. But it was inevitable. If you look beyond the box, as we say, you're going to find UFO connections, whatever UFOs may be in any given situation, and there may be many explanations. So that's what we've been doing, is sort of broadening the picture.
Yep, and cryptids, right? Cryptoids, right?
Cryptids as well, yeah. There have been several Bigfoot sightings in this particular area. And we do find that in what we refer to as flap areas, because the one in central Connecticut is not the only one. Right near us here, and probably not all that far from you either, is the Freetown State Forest in Massachusetts, the so-called Bridgewater Triangle, which my son and I have investigated and are still investigating. We have photographs of what appear to be small people. Now, again, I have a degree in philosophy. I try to keep my scholarly wits about me and have my feet on the ground. But when you see photographs of this kind, and in a sunny forest with leaves, you're going to have all sorts of illusions and all this. However, these are rather clear flesh tones, which are very unusual in nature unless you're dealing with fungi. So there are all sorts of things going on there, just as there are in the Torrington area, with the exception, as far as we know so far, of the military. Okay. However, Ben and I have investigated the Rendlesham Forest area. Larry Warren himself, one of the eyewitnesses to the UFO occurrences in 1980, took us around there personally. We had experiences at night there that Ben did not want to go back. I went back, and it was just very interesting. Something I may mention at the convention. So there are areas like this apparently all over the world. As the great John Keel said, the entire planet really is haunted. Yes. So you have to take it one chunk at a time. Right.
Well, in Leominster, Massachusetts, where the conference is being held, there have been Bigfoot sightings, and there have been plaster casts taken of footprints. And over the years, many people have had experiences there. That region of town was always referred to as Monsterland, and I never quite knew that at the time as to why. That. No, and we have two speakers, Billy Penning and Ronnie LeBlanc. Ronnie LeBlanc is writing a book about the Bigfoot phenomenon in Massachusetts as well. So you'll get to meet them.
Look forward to that.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, Paul, is there any more places here in New England that people don't know much about, that are active, as far as orbs and paranormal and cryptids?
Well, pretty much, yeah. You can pretty much pin down any area. I'm thinking of southern Maine, the York, Ogunquit area is active. Yeah. We've had several cases up there. The eastern Connecticut vicinity. That was where my first case was in 1970 and 71 and 72. That still remains active. Central Massachusetts, around the Quabbin Reservoir area, there seems to be some activity as well. These are all, we believe, areas where there are, and I think wherever you go, there are interlocking relationships between what in quantum mechanics is known as parallel worlds. Intersect, as it were. And that's how paranormal phenomena, in our opinion, occur. You have worlds in which there are various sorts of people and entities, including UFOs and this sort of thing, who not only will interact with us inadvertently, but perhaps advertently, perhaps by intention. Maybe that's how these craft, if that's what they are, travel from world to world, not just perhaps planet to planet, but it literally parallel universe to parallel universe. So that's kind of what we're looking at, and that may happen everywhere. But the flap areas are areas where there seem to be long-term intersect areas, and the question arises: why is the military interested in this? Well, as I said at last year's conference, we would simply love to weaponize the paranormal. Also, in the central Connecticut flap we've been discussing, in the Litchfield area, Torrington area, there is some evidence that there's some research going on as far as using, I suppose, for lack of a better term, portals between these worlds to produce power.
Right.
Rather an interesting and practical usage of these things, but of course we don't know this for sure. These are all, it's all pretty much speculation on our part with some circumstantial evidence. So the field itself is very active. It's getting into entirely new areas, and I think that we have to broaden our thinking if we're going to understand any of this. Of course, the military and intelligence connection is interesting because when I was having intelligence training, you're told essentially that you don't just like try and clam up on things. You release accurate information from sources that are considered inaccurate, and inaccurate information from accurate sources, and it keeps everyone guessing. And everyone loves a mystery.
Right.
So as far as sifting the information, you have to be very careful with that. But there is a lot going on in New England, and certain areas do seem to have hot spots that are significant.
Right. And Leominster is one of them. Speaking with friends of mine growing up, you know, there were always people telling me up in the Hill Street area of Leominster, looking out and over town, that they would see craft. That they were they had evidence of ships landing and the ground being burnt in a triangular formation, and you'll get to meet these people as I'm letting them know about our conference. It's fascinating. You know, these are people that are you know normal, intelligent people, not those prone to stories. So.
Well, there are two questions here, Susan. One is how many people do not report sightings because they're afraid to?
Right.
Very true.
And why is it that, I'm thinking particularly of the Hudson Valley sightings, which is another area west of us in New York State and eastern and western Connecticut. How many people, of course, are in groups, and some people see the UFO and other people don't, or some people see the ghost and don't, or whatever it may be, the cryptid.
Yes.
It's interesting because people have told me, and I'm thinking of one sighting in western Connecticut that I consider part of the Hudson Valley sightings, which were really active in the 80s and up through now to a degree. And he said that it was over his neighborhood, a large disc-shaped craft, very silent, very bright. But he's the only one who saw it, and actually someone else did too, but they were at a different block. And he said he felt as though he was being tested. Now, isn't that an interesting way to put it?
Yes, right.
So some of these experiences are very personal, not necessarily public. And of course, the question arises: well, did they really see something? Well, usually you have 2 or 3, but not everyone. So something to look into, in addition to the rest of what we've discussed.
Can you define the word cryptid? Or crypt? What was the word you were discussing earlier, Willy?
Sure. Well, cryptid comes from the word, I suppose, cryptozoology, which is the study of unclassified creatures that are alleged to exist but have not been definitely confirmed, such as the Loch Ness Monster, or in New England, a champ in Lake Champlain. Also, Bigfoot and creatures of that kind, of many varieties, Mothman and this sort of thing, which have not necessarily been categorized by biology, and may involve multiple world intersects, and may sort of almost get into the realm of perhaps ghosts and even UFOs at times, because the area is rather nebulous. So that's what a cryptid is, and any creature that fits that description is known as a cryptid.
Okay, thank you for defining that, because sometimes people will be listening to a talk and they won't really know what a word means, and they may be afraid to ask.
You have to define things. That's
right.
Right,
exactly.
I've sat through entire lectures where people refer to EMF meters.
And no
which
one
is
knows
something
that electromagnetic...
the ghost hunters, quote unquote, use, which I think is sometimes rather silly because it's an engineer's tool. And they'll never define what EMF stands for, which of course is electromagnetic field. So, I mean, as a journalist, which is what I do professionally, I have to always on first reference define your term and spell it out.
Right.
Now, Paul, this farm in Connecticut that you had looked at, is it very similar to the Skinwalker Ranch Bob Bigelow and that whole government thing where the government got involved, and we're basically not letting people get too close to that farm?
Well, actually, we think it is. The Skinwalker Ranch, as it's called in Utah, is a classic area for research. And if you believe the books that have been written, there's a group of scientists actually investigating it. And it has issues such as very, very multiversal things in our book. Holes in the air through which come strange creatures, strange disjointedness in space and time. There was one incident whereby an entire bunch of cows disappeared and was found inside a trailer. Very odd. And you name it, it goes on. UFOs coming out of holes in the sky and going back into them. That's the way these things are described. I don't know if it's exactly as dramatic as that in central Connecticut, but we do refer to that case as Connecticut's Skinwalker Ranch, and a lot has yet to be written about that. The military, again, as I say, we have some evidence, of course, that farm is being used. That's where the military activity seemed to be concentrated in 2009 and 2010. People would walk to the edges of their property, say with their dogs, and would be turned away courteously but firmly by armed troops, whether they were actually Army or military contractors is another question. There were, some people say they were dressed in black, which could indicate either one. The actual farm, we were there with a film crew in 2010, and this was a rather important New York director. They were thinking of having a pilot for a show with Ben and myself, and we were never allowed to see the footage because some very strange things happened at that farm and then somewhere else as well. But at the farm, there at the time was a large barn that was rather old. It has since been torn down. By 2013, a large metal sheet, thousands of square feet wide and long, that could only be seen from the air. And I showed a photograph of this at when we spoke last year at the conference, had appeared. We don't know what that was for, but now a new farm building has been erected with the same two silos. There was evidence of excavation under the site that had been covered up, and the new farm building there's no farming activity, there's no cattle, there's no evidence of any farming going on, and it looks to me almost like the traditional design for an English dairy farm or barn anyway. But we don't know what's happening there, but something fishy is definitely going on. The ownership of the property is kind of ambiguous, so we'll be checking in on that, both Bill Hall and myself at the conference.
You can go to town hall and find out who owns any piece of property. They won't tell you?
You can, but whether it's accurate is another question. The owners of this apparently are absentee owners who are rather mysterious. We can't find out much more about them
What about the
names.
What about the registry of deeds? Okay, so you do have a name, but you just don't know.
Oh, sure.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
But that doesn't mean they can't lease it to another entity or this sort of thing.
Sure.
So, as far as no farming, I mean, people can go in and hay and rent the land, but that doesn't even seem to be any evidence of that.
That's very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Who knows?
So maybe we're wrong, but I'd rather doubt it at this point.
We'll be looking forward to hear any updates on that on the
absolutely.
when
There'll
October
probably be
comes
more
around.
than I know now too. So because there's always something happening
Every
almost every day.
every
with this.
day, exactly. So, wow. We're always I'm always interested in history. I loved going to Rhode Island when I was a child. Even
Well, I'll bring
now,
you a copy of
now.
the book then.
Great, thank you. No, that's
In
no.
October.
We used to go visit all the Newport mansions and visit the
Oh,
various,
sure, yeah.
So
I was down there yesterday.
Were you? Oh, that's great.
Well, nothing in Rhode Island is very far from anything else.
No, that's true. It's only 25 miles wide, so you can get anywhere.
Well, 48 miles long, 37 miles wide.
Oh, is it
maybe.
there? Oh, it's
And,
37.
but most of that is underwater.
right. No, that's fantastic. So, so tell us about some of your past books that you've written that you'll have at the conference, and
Well, yeah.
and so
Well, that'll be, of course, Faces at the Window, Footsteps in the Attic, Turning Home. And also, there's a new book that was published by Timothy Green Beckley, who's a well-known sort of classic figure in the UFO community. He's been at this longer than I have. And it's called The Bell Witch Project. Now, it doesn't sound very UFO related, but
No.
it's, I suppose it's not, but it's referring to the famous Bell Witch case of 1817 to 1821 in Tennessee, which was the subject of the film The American Haunting, on which I was something of a consultant some years ago. And the book has some contributions by me regarding some old New England cases, such as one that might even get into the UFO realm, the very little known Spectre Leaguers, as they were called, of Cape Ann, Massachusetts.
Oh, sure.
A very strange case, 1692, and I often wonder if it didn't sort of trip off the paranoia that led to the witch hysteria in Salem later that year.
Right, that's right there,
You know?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was interesting. There were strange lights in the sky, awfully odd figures running around bothering people, and it was quite the case. And also the vampire cases of Rhode Island and Connecticut that went up to the 1890s, which is yesterday historically.
Right.
So that book we'll have on sale as well, and that has a lot of interesting stuff about written by other people as well.
So then can you explain to us what your philosophy is beyond in regards to if you are home and this wispy figure goes past? Do you feel that is a ghost, or do you feel it's something from another dimension, or what's your take on that?
Well, perhaps it might be all of the above.
Okay.
I think that you have to sort of forget the whole idea of what you see is what you get around you.
Yeah.
Nothing in the paranormal is what it appears to be, because our own paradigm is very limited.
Right.
In other words, because this is the big question, what happens when you die? Okay.
Right.
Well, maybe nothing happens. In our point of view, the world we see around us is one of billions and billions, all of which interact. Now, Hollywood started to address that some years ago in Quantum Leap and things of this kind, where you sort of leap from one parallel world to another. Well, that doesn't seem to be how it works. Okay. We've run into ghosts, quote unquote, of people who are still alive. We've run into ghosts, quote unquote, who believe we were ghosts haunting them because they were just going about their daily lives. And so things like that, phantom buildings. Yeah. I talked to couples in Scotland who had gone over a hill, had dinner at an inn, and they came back the next day and found out that the place had been gone for 100 or 200 years. So this all led to our belief in the multiverse, the idea that we have a sort of Swiss cheese kind of creation here, where things bleed into other worlds, where they interact and intersect with it sounds disorderly, but they do it in a very orderly way and in a rather elegant way. So when you're seeing this wispy figure, it's not necessarily Uncle Charles skipping down the hall 2 weeks after his funeral.
Right.
It could be Uncle Charles or someone or something else simply sharing your space temporarily because the conditions are there for them to manifest in our world. The weird thing is when I stood in the Bridgeport House in Connecticut in 1974 with a couple of police officers on one side and a couple of firefighters on the other, and we watched the refrigerator pick itself up and turn itself around and sit back down again, everybody said, aha, the demon did it. Well, I mean, that's not good enough. I think that the worlds that were washing through that house at that time, one may have passed over that refrigerator where the refrigerator was weightless. The idea that the laws of physics are very different from one world to another is accepted pretty much in physics. And this is really not theory anymore. It's just how you interpret it. Physicists will tell you that, yeah, there are parallel worlds in one form or another, and because they may interpret it differently than we do, but there are some major names who have been on our radio show, who interpret it exactly the way we do, more or less, including the great Fred Allen Wolf, and who has said, that we're on the right track. So maybe we're on the right track.
Okay. Wow. That's and understanding if when people visit places, that they visit a historical home, or if they visit even a battlefield, that blood has been shed from people, and then sometimes you're feeling different things that are going on that happened hundreds of years ago as well.
Well, that's true. Gettysburg, of course, is the classic example of that. When there is terrible trauma of that kind, especially death and terrible things such as happened there, this seems to echo, as it were, across the multiverse, and we pick it up. where we are. There have been many examples of not only at Gettysburg, but in many other places of people seeing the battle taking place. I have several people in England who I'm in contact with who have witnessed this sort of thing in connection with the Battle of Naseby in the English Civil War in the 1640s. So this is the normal condition of our world.
Right.
We live in a very artificial environments generally. We even control our own weather in our own homes. But the fact is that we live in this multiverse. It's a normal part of our lives and our existence. And the trouble is that we don't recognize that. So when someone has a multiverse experience very often, we say, aha, they're schizophrenic, and we fill their pockets with antipsychotic drugs. All right. And some of my more interesting experiences occurred in psychiatric hospitals when I was a seminary student and a grad student in psychology. And I would talk to people who were allegedly schizophrenic, and I would say, these people ought to be the doctors here. You know, they're experiencing worlds that I thought might be real, and that we are the ones with the problems because we don't recognize that there can be an elegant existence in realizing that you're living in many places and many times at the same, all parallel, no past, no future. That seems to be how it works. When I've addressed groups of psychiatrists on this, they have, of course, the steam has come out of the ears and the eyes turn red, but afterwards they come up to me individually, many of them, and say, you know, I've often suspected the same thing, but if I said that, I'd lose my job. Right. So science has politics involved in it, and there are issues with that as well. So the same thing with UFOs, coming and going. People will see them disappear right in front of them, appear right in front of them. The same thing with those who apparently are the denizens of the UFOs. And so maybe we're dealing with parallel worlds here. And it's the first day of school.
Wow. That's true. It's fascinating when you really start to share and study all of these various angles and how it does bring us all together. And we are all one.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And Paul, next time you're in the area, please give us a call.
Oh, certainly. Well, we're not that far. I'm in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. But next time I am, I certainly will.
Yes,
and
yes,
did you want to hear about my radio show? Or?
Absolutely.
Yes,
tell us
absolutely.
about your radio show.
Okay, because the Leominster area is just probably on the edge of the reception area, but it's called Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, and the website is behindtheparanormal.com, and there are over 600 hours of podcasts on there. If you have the time, they're all free. Yeah. And they're all, so we're on Monday evenings, 6 to 7 p.m. It's WOON 1240 in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. As I say, you're just about the edge of the area. If you can't get it on the radio, you can certainly go to onworldwide.com, and you can click the ON TV icon, and you'll not only be able to hear the show, you'll have the jarring experience of actually seeing us in the studio as well. So plenty of opportunity to listen. And we want to have you and Willy. You were on a few weeks ago to talk about the conference. We're going to have you back before the conference takes place at least once, if not more.
Don't worry, you're adorable. We love to see you. So.
Well, thank you. I can live 6 months on one good compliment, as Mark Twain said.
They're all true.
That's right.
They're all true. You know, we hold you in high regards.
Absolutely.
You're welcome. The check's in the mail.
We're thrilled that you'll be joining us this year.
Looking forward to it.
It'll be a lot of fun. We have a lot of great things planned for the event. So.
It's a wonderful event.
Thank you. So thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you very soon.
See you soon. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Paul. Take care.
Thank you. Okay.
Have you ever seen a UFO? Bigfoot or some ghost?